All right. So today we'll be discussing transformation in data analysis with Power BI. Last week we had a quick introduction into the class, and today we'll be having some hands-on practical experience. Actually, we started some practicals last week, but to me, that's not adequate, and we weren't able to complete it. So today we'll be having hands-on experience. And the good thing is that unlike the previous platform we used, where I wasn't able to hear people or express their mind about how they feel about the class or ask questions directly to my ears, but you will have the opportunity to ask questions directly, say it your way, and we'll be able to address the issue. So we don't move too slow. I would want us to start right now. So today, what's the approach I would use is that we're going to take any random data generated afresh by maybe an AI, ChatGPT, and we would tell it to generate a data for us based on our specification though, and we'll work on the data together. And by so doing, you'll be rest assured that this person teaching you is not teaching from a data you already knew or that he has seen before, but we all be looking at the data from the perspective of data analysts. And remember what I mentioned in the past class, critical thinking is very, very important. We look into the data together and see what this data needs to get it transformed. So I'll be sharing my screen right now. Okay. So let me just get my ChatGPT ready. Okay, I'm sharing this ChatGPT window. Can we all see my screen? Please let me know when you see the screen so I can be so sure that it's being presented. So for those of us who have access to AI, it's a very good thing to take advantage of. Thank you, good luck. I can see you can see my screen. You can take advantage of it, even if you do not have access to any other source where you can get data to analyze or train yourself. Just ask ChatGPT to generate a data for you as a beginner. And you can, get things ready from there. You're good to go from there. So, right, so my prompt to it is that generate an Excel file with 3 sheets containing fact table and dimension table. So for a basic Power BI class. All right, so while we're waiting for ChatGPT, I will quickly enumerate what I mean by fact table and dimensions table. In a company database, they have 2 types of tables, a fact table and a dimension table. A fact table is a table where things that happen concurrently, like every second, is being recorded. And usually this table is always filled with numbers. The fact table always has every record. For instance, you put your ATM to withdraw from your ATM machine or any ATM machine using your ATM card. That process of slotting it into the ATM machine of any bank where you have visited will be recorded into the system of the bank that issued that card to you, should in case it was stolen by someone. There will be a record of the location where that ATM card was used. There will be a record of the time where that ATM card was slotted in. There will be a record. In fact, you will see some machines always have cameras. The record of everything is taken. And once such records are taken, because that record at times will not even be useful, not that it might even be you that use your ATM yourself, but that record for the purpose of whatever anything that happens in future can be revisited. So such records go to the facts table. But dimensions table is a table that contains your identity or any other thing that describes. For instance, okay, the dimension table, we have the name, your full name, the last name, middle name, date of birth, where you are born, or whatever information, address of next of kin, or whatever the bank has collected from you. They are stored in the dimension table. But the facts table is a table that tells them everything that happened every second in your interaction or transaction with the bank. That is fact table. In the fact table, there are keys that links to other dimensions table. So if you read up on this, you understand it better. It's usually used in a database, in keeping records in the database. Now, ChatGPT has generated the data for us to work with, and we can see it's all new to you and I. Let's look into it. So it's asked me to download the Excel file, which I have clicked on download, and I'll be opening it now. Okay, I can see that I'm not sharing the entire screen. That's why you cannot see what's going on in the background. So I would share something else as I open Power BI. So I can see that it's has generated an Excel sheet, which we can see from here. Here's the Excel sheet. Good. Can we see this screen, please? I just need to be sure. Good, thank you. Thank you. It's an Excel sheet, just so we can see what the screen looks like, the data looks like from what ChatGPT has given us. ChatGPT has given us this data, so we can work with it. Now, let's look at what we can do with this data. So I'll be opening Power BI, and I would also share the screen for Power BI. Okay, so here's the Power BI interface as I taught last week. Last week, I familiarized us with Power BI environment, where we get data and transform data, then analyze data. Right, to avoid distractions, I might just turn off my camera so you don't have to, so you get focused on the screen alone. Right, so before I continue, let's reiterate how to bring data into Power BI. This is the Power BI environment. There are so many ways to get data into it. You can get data by clicking this environment. Let me just show it to you directly. So by clicking this environment, you can get data. Can you see my mouse? So I'm trying to move my mouse so you can see what exactly I'm working on. All right. So this is the get data from other sources, such that if you click on it, it will give you a list of all connectors where you can pick data into Power BI. So these are a list of certified connectors. That's where you can get data from. I can decide to get this data from a database. I have databases that has data, but I prefer to do something that we all are seeing for the first time. Okay, so let me bring in this data by clicking on Excel workbook, and it's going to show the Power BI training data. It comes into the environment. Why is it not showing the screen? I think at this point I'm going to share my entire screen, but my entire screen is too wide. You might not be able to see. My entire screen is too wide. You cannot see it. Okay, let me see how I can get this thing done better. You're not seeing the screen I want you to see right now. Okay, let me just try to share my entire screen. How does it look like at your end, seeing my entire screen? Is it too big for you?
It's okay.
Is it too long?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
it's long.
it's because I have a very wide monitor, and that is why I'm trying to share my screen one by one, so that because I know people do not everybody has long monitor to view. Okay, let me see how else I can share it. Okay, I think it's showing the screen I want right now. So here is the Excel file coming into, okay, just like I said, I wanted to turn off my camera. Here is the Excel file coming into Power BI. I requested for 3 sheets. And these are the 3 sheets. Now, this environment is where I can preview the data. Once I click this, just click on the data, not checking it yet, just clicking on it. I would see the content of that data I'm bringing in. Here is a fact table that contains this information. Here is another table called dim date, dimension date, contains this information. So if I check this data, definitely I'm ready to bring them into Power BI. That is step 1 in bringing in your data. The second step is, because we need to do some data cleansing, we are using transform data. This data is not meant for us to use, and I will tell you why. The reason is that if you're not sure of the status of a particular data, if it's standardized, you should not be clicking on load. But if I've transformed this data earlier and saved it somewhere, I can load it directly. Or maybe if I've transformed it in Excel, because you can also use Excel to transfer to clean data to some extent, you can just click on load. But if you have not done that earlier, you don't need load. Another reason to use load is if the data has been transformed by who we call the data engineers, then we can click on load. In essence, what I'm saying is that if a data has been cleansed, that is when we can say we want it loaded. I hope that is quite understood now, so that in case anybody wants to ask me, why am I clicking on this and not this? That is why. So to those that are just joining, they can just, I believe I'm taking a recording of the, let me just check. Okay, still recording. So I can assure you that you can get a copy of the information we have or whatever we have discussed. But to have a quick recap, we requested ChatGPT to generate a data for us, and that we want to work on that data. So we are all having that data for the first time, and we'll be looking into it as data analysts. So clicking on transform data, it opens this environment. The environment it opened is called the Power Query Editor. The Power Query Editor. And I can see that it's not showing that screen yet, so I will have to show it again. The reason I'm showing one by one is because my screen is so long, and if I should share the entire screen, people will not understand what exactly is happening. All right. So on clicking on transform, it brought me to this environment. This environment is where I'm able to transform any data that I've imported. And now we'll be transforming this data together. We'll be transforming this data together. The first data we'll be looking into is the customer data. Remember the analogy I gave you in the case of a bank having customers, and a customer using his ATM in a bank on a random basis. The name of that customer is saved in an environment called dimension stable. So let's assume that this is a customer of a particular company, and the name of that customer, the customer has a customer ID. That is a fact. You must have a customer ID, at least a unique identifier. And the customer has a full name, and the customer's gender is known, their age group is stated, their city is here, their whatever segment of whatever operations they are into is here. So the fact table is what says other information regarding maybe they requested a product, the date they joined, or whatever is in the fact table. The quantity they are purchased, or the quantity of whatever they are selling, or if they are selling some product in the company, whatever the quantity they are selling, the amount, the unit price, the discount rate, the gross sales, this is what ChatGPT just generated for us. So we'll be cleaning the dim customer, which dim means dimension. So the first thing I want us to look into is, let's look at the table. Is there anything wrong with the table? So the first thing you look into before you start cleaning the data is understand that data. You can't just start cleaning a house if you don't seem to understand the corners, the terrains, or how the environment looks like. So we'll be looking into the data at least to understand this data. So once we understand this data, we will be able to get it resolved to do some transformation to assist ourselves. So I want to give us 1 minute to look into this data before I start asking questions. That what do you think is wrong with this data? So if there is no problem, there is no reason to provide a solution. So let's look into this data before we continue. And before I give us that 1 minute, let me just quickly introduce us again. I mentioned this last week, but I will mention it again. This is the Power BI Power Query Editor environment. In this side, if you can see my mouse, in this side of the screen is called the table statistics. This tells us the information about this particular data that is being highlighted. If I click on this dim date, here is the table statistics of dim date. If I click on fact sales, here is the table statistics of fact sales. So because we're working on dim customer, dimensions customer, here is the table statistics of dimensions customer. It says 7 columns, 50 rows. 7 columns, 50 rows. Here are columns lined vertically, and on the horizontal part are the rows, just like in Excel. So it means it has 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So that is what it meant by the columns and rows. And last week, I also mentioned the tabs, just like in any Microsoft suite. You will see they have the way of making people familiarize with anything Microsoft. This is home, the transform tab, the add column tab, the view tab, others, tools, and help are just for preferability, maybe on the advanced level. So looking at home, transform, add column, and view, we should be able to use them conveniently in cleaning our data. And that is what we are here to do. To clean this data effectively with the tools available. All right, so I will give us 1 minute break to look into this data that we have in our front and see what we can do with it. Let me try to expand it so we can see all the data showing. Right, just 1 minute. So by 12:31, I would ask, what do you notice? You can start dropping your observations in the comment section if you notice anything. All right, I can see what I notice is that this data that ChatGPT generated for us do not really have much errors. That is my verdict. I need a data where we are able to solve real life problems. This data does not have too many problems. I wanted a messy data. So let me just get up a data that is more messier than this, because we need something that will give us real life scenarios of what is happening out there. So just permit me to, or does anybody have any observation? Let me see if there's anything you can claim. Age group, okay. Somebody said age group. What did you see in age group? The age group is actually okay for me. It's just pointing at their group of their ages, 55 plus. It has arranged it well. That is the challenge I have. This data is not messy. So, okay, let me just bring in my data. I was actually thinking I will get in a new data that I've not seen myself. But here I'm having a data that is looking so tidy. So let's just close the Power Query editor. And I will be showing Power BI again. So we'll be launching Power BI again to get in another data. I think I will find the data myself that is a bit messy for us to resolve. I think it's a good thing for those that are just joining, that means we'll be starting afresh altogether. Okay, so let's look at this data. I think I have a messy data here. I'm waiting for Power BI to come up. I'm able to share you what it has for us. All right. Okay, good. I think this is a very good example. Another fact table and dimensions table. This is a perfect example of something messy. Good. So I've showed us how we check in the data and bring it into Power BI. So that's perfect for us. Okay, so we have it now in Power Query Editor. Yes. Now let's give us another 1 minute to look into this data to see something we can run with. At least there is one observation right now. Look into this data. There is the first observation. If you look into this data, what is your observation? Just to be sure that I have. Okay, somebody raised hand. Okay.
Yeah.
What is your observation? You can say it. I can't hear you. Ajagbe, are you trying to speak? Do you see?
The column of the date.
Yeah. Good afternoon, sir.
The column. What happened to the column? There's nothing wrong with the column. It has even labeled it 1 to 30. But the first thing I noticed, okay, let me see, check if somebody said something. Someone said customer 13. What happened to customer 13? Oh, good. You meant the location, right? Like Manchester, see the way it was written. These
Yes,
are
sir.
issues. Yes, these are issues
Yes.
we have to look into when it comes to data cleansing, ensuring that a data is standardized. And before we continue, let me introduce you to this environment. To have a quick overview of your data, you need to learn to make use of this tab. They call it the view tab, where you do some data preview. These are meant for data preview. If I want to check the quality of a column without having to look at it one by one, if I click on this, it tells me the column quality. It tells you if your rows are valid. And if you check column distribution, something will tell. Column distribution will tell you about being distinct and being unique. What do I mean by distinct? Okay, let me try to make use of the writing.
All right.
Let me try to make use of the writing too. So when I say distinct and unique, if you have like AAA, BBB, CCD, in this case, the number of unique characters are just number of distinct characters rather are just A, B, C, D, regardless of how many times they appeared. That is what they meant by being distinct. So if you see, you can see this one shows that this is fully valid because we should be having 30 distinct and 30 unique. No one should be happening twice. That is the meaning of being distinct. Now, if you want to talk about the unique one, the only unique character in my analogy here is D, because it's the only one that did not appear more than once. That is why we are having 8 distinct, 3 unique. It is only 3 locations that is not showing more than once. I hope you understand that better now. All right, so I've been able to explain what that column distribution means. Now, let's look at column profile. What column profile says? The column profile tells you the value distribution, how the value is being distributed. Actually, we actually expected 30 because there are 30 rows, and so it was distributed evenly. There is no empty row, there is no invalid row, there is no null row. Now, that is using the data preview environment. Now, going back to start cleaning this data. First of all, let's know that it is very possible for us to manipulate data as we like. And let's not forget this environment. This is where we see the steps we have taken, the applied steps. Just like I said earlier in last class, Power BI Power Query Editor does not use Ctrl-Z like other Microsoft suites. All you just have to do is check your applied steps where you can cancel or do it again. All right. So moving forward, I want us to look into the dim customers and let's fix the inconsistent text. Before we continue, another thing we need to familiarize ourselves with is the data types. Knowing what they mean by data types. Data type is like telling you the type of data that is expected in that row. So once you put the data type, the system intelligently fixes that column to suit that data type. Like customer ID now, everybody see that they are integers. So in this case, it's a whole number. In customer name, usually is text, but the name of customers are not even stated in this data. So let's leave it as what it is, text. The location is also written in text. There is no location that has number, except you are talking of postcode or street number. So we are leaving it as text. So familiarize yourself with this environment. This is where you would see the data types that a particular data has. If you want to set it manually, there is also an avenue where you can tell the system to automatically dictate the data type. That is when you come to transform and you click on dictate data type. So for instance, if I click on dictate data type, it would automatically dictate data type, but that is not intelligent enough because this one says joint date. Joint date would not, this is not looking like a date. There's an embedded information in this. And we will see what it is now. If I change it to date, it says, should I replace it? I said yes. Now can we see that we have an information that is being hidden from us? Is anyone following at all? So if I click on close this, if I close this step that I took, where I changed the data type, it's like I would like to reverse what I did so we can see what happened. Focus on that join date column. It was not formatted correctly. That is why we have this from the Excel. I think it was written anyhow in Excel. I don't know if people care, but when it got to Power BI, it's not giving us what we want. But because it's supposed to be a date, I want to convert it to what it should be. I click on this and click on date. The system automatically picked the correct date from the hexadecimal codes that was written there. Now the date has been well formatted. That is part of what we are here to do. Formatting our data correctly. Now, let's look into this location. Something is wrong with this location. Can somebody tell me again? I think we can see the summary is that the location alphabets are not standardized. We do not know if the person wants, okay, let's say a data entry happened, and it happens. A data entry might happen that somebody, a data entry staff, just did an input anyhow. Or maybe these people filled their information from the internet and just did it in a hurry, or do not even care about setting the alphabets correctly. And now let's assume we have so many of them, even if they are more than 30, because we can't be doing it one by one. The right thing to do is to either use the right click here. When you right click this environment, if you right in the column and go to something we call transform, transform will give you these options. If you want to capitalize each word, if you want them in uppercase, if you want them in lowercase. Another way where you can do it, when you come to transform here, or you go to home, rather, I think transform, yeah, transform. You go to format. Here we can see it because I want us to do it in an environment where you will see how the transformation is going to happen. So the same option is available here when you come to the text column group format. So we can capitalize each word or change everything to uppercase. Let's change everything to uppercase. Can you see what happened? It's changed instantly. If there are 200 million rows, that is how it's going to change and obey your instruction. Now I'm rest assured that we all know how to change the format of text instantly. You can just change it by coming to format. I want to capitalize each word. I just click on it and it normalized everything. That has been taken care of. It's that simple. It's just that simple. Now let's check if you have duplicates. But I can see we do not have duplicates, but it's a very, very good thing. It's a very good practice to double check if you have duplicates. And how do we double check for duplicates? In customer ID, for instance, if there are duplicates, you can just either right click and you would say remove duplicate, and it will remove whatever duplicate. But once I click on remove duplicate, nothing happened because there were no duplicates. But if I should try it on this location, you can see that it has duplicates, but it is not intelligent to remove duplicate on location because many customers might be living in the same location. Customer 6 is living in Manchester. Customer 13 is also living in Manchester. So it doesn't make sense for me to tell the system to take off any duplicate in location. And that is why we keep saying that AI cannot take the job of a data analyst, because there is a part of data analysis that involves critical thinking. Your critical thinking skills, even though the artificial intelligence system has been so trained to learn or do things so perfectly, but they can never be as smart as human. That is the good news for people that are doing some jobs like data analytics and some other jobs that entails physical presence of human beings. Because Even if AI if you just tell AI remove any duplicate in anything, it will just mess the data out for you, and you will not be working with intelligent data. But as a human, you can think even deeper than whatever your instruction has been given to you. You can, oh, does this thing need to be removed? What does this person mean? In fact, there are some times in data that you see a figure, and being you being in charge of the data, just to ensure data integrity. If you're going to alter something, you inform your bosses, and they will tell you, oh, this is what this person intended to do. You can change it to this. But several documentations also will be attached just for data integrity. But what I'm saying is that an AI would not be able to figure out your intentions. It can only give you options to choose from. That is the truth. All right. So as not to waste much time on this, let's look at what else can we do on this data. You've been able to normalize this. Or let me now teach another aspect of data integrity that we might want to do. There's something we call data preservation. You might want to preserve data for the case of data lineage, so that, for instance, somebody's name is supposed to start with capital letter. But if for your own reason you decide to say, okay, you don't want this that way, you want the first letter on your name to start with small letter, and you have given an instruction to that, maybe to your bank or to any organization where your identity has been taken, you have the right for your data or your choices to be preserved. And so let's assume this is somebody's name or this is somebody's location, and the person said, I just for lineage, I want my M to be small letter and other part to be capital letter, just like I have written it. Now we can decide to say we want to clean this data, but we want to preserve how the person did it initially. That is called data lineage. So leaving data for the lineage might be required for a data you are cleansing. Now, how do we get this done? Okay, let me try to return to what this data looks like. This is what the data looks like. You can see I use the apply steps to cancel the steps. This is what it looks like. And I want us to clean it on another column. How do we get that done? So when you click on this, go to add column tab, and you will see format. When you click on format and say you want this capitalize each word in a new column, when you do that, it capitalized each word, but it created a new column so that you can always have the old column to reference with. These are options that are available for you in Power BI. The fact is that once we do not have some problems to solve, we will not be able to really touch the available tools to use. The problem determines what tools we need. All right. So that has been taught about preserving the lineage of a data. So now I think this particular, okay, let me just change. You can change this by just double clicking it. Let me just change this to customer name, customer location fixed. Or just location fixed. Good. So location fixed is the name given to our new column. So we have decided to create a new column without having to alter the previous column as the customers put them. So we have this as feeling that this is what is right, and we have left it that way. All right, so let's move on to the next table. I think for me, this table is clean, although it's not really messy enough, but at least we have something to work with on that. So let's look at this dim product table. What does the product table say? It's actually giving us the unit price, and there are no empty rows. Everything looking as expected. But one thing I can see is that the unit price is giving us decimal. What if we change it to, because if they give us price, I think the entry official wanted to let us know that these are either in dollars or in naira or in pounds. So to state this, there's something called fixed decimal number. Fixed decimal number is usually used for currencies. So once you click on it, it changes this to currency. The advantage of doing this is that when we get to the data visualization, the visualized data would treat this data as money and not just decimal numbers. That is the essence. So data cleansing has a very big role in ensuring that your visualization is proper. If you do not get it right from here, we will be having issues when we get to visualization. And I would ensure that we are able to do some visualization on this particular project today so that we don't have any half-baked project. So we are going to get this done today, even though it's going to be on a basic level so that you don't get bored with some coding and unnecessary stuff that you think you don't need at your stage, even though you will need it to become an expert. Definitely. So it's not that I'm saying you won't need it, you will need it. But so you to familiarize you with the Power BI environment and its finished product, we are going to ensure that this data gets visualized today. Okay, so for me, this table is standardized. We have this product ID in phone number. We have checked the data type. It's in text for product name. Category is in text. And unit price is in fixed decimal number that shows that, yes, this thing is money matter. £230, 38p is the amount of product one in the category of furniture. All right, so this is the biggest data. Just like I said, fact tables are usually the most important table in the organization where facts are stored. And usually, fact tables are usually very many. You can see even when we dealt with customers with 30 rows, according to the table statistics, the product itself says 10 rows. But when we got to fact tables, we had 100 rows. That is just an example, though, because in a typical organization, you might deal with data that is more than 100,000 rows. It is just left to you to understand the processes. And the truth is that what applies to a particular column, no matter the number of rows it has, it will be affected. For instance, how I change the how we change the capitalization of that location. If we add 100,000 or a million rows affected in that column called location, they will all transform immediately. That is the beauty of this. And remember, all I've been doing since in this Power Query editor, I have not pressed a single code. Even though on the advanced level, there is something we call mQuery. But that is when you have decided to become an expert. Because at that point, you will be intentional to really go deeper in Power BI. For instance, if I want to clean all this data without having to do these things one by one, I might write a code and it will do and solve everything for me at a go, just by inputting it in the advanced environment, advanced editor environment. Okay, so as not to take you or to digress, let's continue cleaning the entire table. Now we'll be cleaning the fact table. First of all, let's change this table's name. We can change the table name by double clicking here, and we can also come to the properties and change the name. You know, the environment is so interesting that you can do one thing in more than one places. So you don't have reasons to say, I forgot, I did not see it. You can see it everywhere. It's on my right, it's on my left. Someone is just joining us, but that doesn't draw us backward. So it's on my right and it's on my left. You can change the table properties here, and you can as well change it here. So let's change this table property to products. Let's change this table properties to customers. All right, I think we are ensuring that this table is really clean as we expected. So for the facts table, the first thing I'll be seeing is we have quantity, we have total amount, but where is the price? The sale date, this is not showing like date. I think we are encountering an issue that we encountered in the first table. Remember that we were only able to achieve this after we have changed the data type. So definitely you should be able to do this even if you have this data yourself. All you just have to do is click on this and change the format to date. And now we have the actual date. The previous dates were written in code, which only the system could decode, and it has decoded it into the right format. Does someone have a question before I continue? Oh, someone said network is very bad. So sorry about that. So sorry about that. But you have the recording to view. All right, so the first thing we have done on the facts table is change the date data type. Now I believe we are familiar with data type environment. All right, another issue I'm seeing here is that we are seeing null price as in some rows, null. It shows their quantity was not declared. And in such case, let's say the sales department, we have contacted them and they told us that, okay, we told them, okay, we have this data we are working on and the data says null in some rows. What do we do to it? And the sales manager tells us that, oh, in the case where there is null, that means nothing was sold. So Mailed any null means it was blank. So that is also literally to 0. Based on their instruction is 0. But on a computing rule, null is not always 0. It means a blank that was not defined. But let's say to standardize our quantity column, this table called quantity, this column called quantity, to standardize it, we want all null values to be known as 0. How do we get this done? You use the tool called replace values. So you can either right click and come to replace values, or if you come here on transform, you would see replace values. Just like I said, Power BI has done it so, made it so easy that that tool you are looking for, you will find it in more than one place in most cases. So when you right click on this and click on replace values, you would see it opened a window. Oh, it's not showing the window to you guys. That is the challenge I have with this Google environment at this point, and I want this window to be shown. Present something else. Unfortunately, the window is not showing because it's a small window, but I really wanted it to show. What do I do to make this show to you guys? Okay, I think it's showing. Can we all see the window, guys?
Yes, it's showing.
So once I clicked on quantity, I right clicked on quantity, and it gave me the option to replace that value. Now, if I put null here and replace it with 0, in any case, where you see null, you should change it to 0. Let me highlight the spot I'm talking about so that when the changes happen, we can all see. This is null. This is null. And once I click on OK, it changes to 0. That is the beauty of it. If you have millions of rows that are affected with null, they have changed to 0. Now this data looks clean. Another thing is wrong with this data called quantity. I want somebody to intelligently look into this data called quantity and tell me what is wrong. I want to give you that benefit of at least contributing to this class. Somebody should tell me what is wrong with this data called quantity. To me, it's not perfect. Even intelligently, it's not perfect. Something is wrong with it. Please have a look at this data called quantity and tell me what you feel is wrong. This data called quantity. Please let's look into it in the next 1 minute. By 1:04, I'll be asking a question. I would like to have seen if you have found out the issue with this column. Thank you. Just brainstorm, think about it. There is an issue with this column called quantity, which still has to be fixed. Look into it, and you can just put it in the comment section if you don't want to talk.
I think the data
Thank you so much. I can see this class is so filled of brilliant people. The data type has issues. You cannot be counting something in 1, 2, 3 and be saying the data type is decimal. So it is very important that we consider the data type as not correct. It should be whole number. And now we can say we have a perfect quantity column. Now we can say we have a perfect quantity column. All right. So to continue in this, I think we still have some issues that needs to be fixed. And what is the issue looking into this data? This data contained quantity and total amount that was sold. But something is still missing. What is it? Well, total amount should be fixed decimal. Thank you to Mininu. That is also noted. That is also noted. But we will fix that in due time when we are done with the total amount. Okay, I noticed something. I want to believe that we made a mistake changing the null to 0. Yes. All right. So let's replace that and not replace the null to 0. I will tell you why. Because in the products, they have unit price. Do you know we can determine the value of that quantity from that unit price so that we don't leave it at zero? Good, thank you, Damilare. You said price should be included as you guess. In fact, it's not as you guess, it's very important. We cannot say we don't know the price of something and we are coming up with a total amount. So right now, what we should have done, rather than changing the none to zero to hurriedly complete this, is that we should have brought in the unit price from another table and then find what exactly is happening to quantity. And what should be the value of quantity if we are doing normal mathematics? I think quantity should be total amount divided by unit price. Yes, that should be the number of whatever you bought is the amount they have sold times the divided by the price of that product. So to fix quantity, what we should have done is do a simple calculation and not change it to zero as a data analyst. Since we've been able to find this, we've been able to have this, and the unit price of these stuffs are there. So all we just have to do is get it fixed. All right, but to get that done, let's bring in this unit price column into this. How do we do that? Let's match the queries. So when we click on this, where we want it, when we want it added on from the sales table, we go to home. You would see this environment that says match queries. And the match queries environment is where you either match or append queries. So I click on match queries. It should open another window for me, which I know, okay, it's showing right now. I think I'm happy about that. So the match queries is showing. And so we select the product ID is what is common to what we have here in the product. And you'll be selecting this to show other tables where you want to get that column from. Product. This is the unit price you want to bring here. And how do we do it? There's something called left outer join. So those of us who have started learning SQL, you will have heard about that. Joining tables together to extract columns that are relevant to your analysis. So right now, we want this unit price. But the common column is what we use to admit ourselves into this environment, which is the product ID. Based on the product ID, we are telling the system to give us this table into this. How do we get it? Just click on OK, and now we can see what has happened. The product table is here. The product table has come to meet us in sales. Even though it's not useful as it is, because all these are links, all we just need to do is get out unit price. And you will see a window that came out showing all the columns. All you just have to do is you can uncheck all and select that thing you need, which is unit price. Let's bring it in. Now we can see unit price. I think it's becoming a bit more interesting because we are able to bring in data from another table. That may be a little advanced, but we need it in this particular data. So sorry about that. We just need it because I didn't think it really makes sense for us to change the null to zero without even going further, doing our due diligence to see if we can get the exact value of those quantities. Now, to get the exact value of that quantity, let's create a new column entirely called quantity. And let's see what we can have from it. How do we do that? Let's go to the tab called Add Column. In Add Column, it's interesting that we can create a new column by even setting examples, but we have not gotten to that yet. First thing we want to do is we want a custom column. The name of the column, can you see the new window? Thank you. Please let me know if you can see the new small window that came up because this is another important part of it. Because we want to generate the actual quantity that does not have null. Thank you. You are seeing, are you seeing the, no, it's not the column, the new window. You can see custom column window. Can you see the custom column window, please? Yes, thank you. So now that we have the custom column window, let's use it to quickly do a simple calculation to generate the quantity of these products. that were sold on those sales dates. How do we do that? Let's give it a name. The new column name is quantity fixed. Quantity fixed. You can give it any name, doesn't matter. It's just based on your own discretion. Remember, you're a data analyst, you have this skill called critical thinking skill. So we are using the critical thinking to quickly fix the issue. So you're using the critical thinking to quickly fix this issue. So in continuation, someone just came in. Sorry, you have to look into the video after that after the class, but I assure you that you will enjoy every bit of it. Right? So the quantity fixed is what we give on the column name, and we want it fixed as given. What do we do? Find a particular gram called formula, and your formula must be correct. How do we arrive at quantity when we have unit price and total amount? So quantity will be total amount divided by unit price. So you can either select it here by double clicking it here. I'm making sure that I've not even typed anything since, except in renaming. So I've double clicked total amount. To divide mathematically is over anything. To multiply is times or asterisk. So when you say slash unit price, that is quantity fixed. The system already told us that there is no syntax error detected in our formula. And when you click on OK, can you see that a new column has been generated? This new column is telling us quantity fixed has arrived. Now let's put it side by side, guys, and let's check if we are able to get it right. We can even see that there were errors in the previous one that they have even given us. This 3 is not actually the correct quantity. This is the actual quantity, but it was approximated. Based on our calculation, this is the correct quantity. Thank God we have to bring in unit price to tell us what has been hidden. So that means to get a data that has integrity, you need to be able to do some calculations. Small calculations. Very small calculations in Power BI. But at some advanced level, you might need some advanced calculations, especially using DAX, data analytics and expressions. But that is when your interest is aroused in data analysis and you really want to be earning high, you want to be earning big, you want people to be able to say that this guy has values, you want to pay for your services, then you also have to upskill yourself. That is the truth. I'm only encouraging us, to become a professor. You don't need to have a teacher. You have to do your research yourself. So at that point, you do research and get to know more about this environment called Power BI. You will definitely fall in love with it. And remember, I'm always at your beck and call. You can always reach out to me if you have any technical roadblock. Just let me know. And not that I'm an expert like that, but we'll look at it together. And I assure you that every mountain will become lay flat. So looking into it, the new quantity fixed column says 6.3 for row 6, which even shows that, remember guys, that you are even trying to fix null, not even knowing that this entire information has issues. So we can just tell this guy that, my dear, remove column. We don't need you. It's gone. So as to not to cause confusion, we have removed it. Remember, we have applied steps. We can decide to bring it back if we need it by clicking on. So for the sake of those that are just coming in, just to quick recap, when we do something in Power BI, we don't need to use Ctrl Z because Ctrl Z will not work in Power Query Editor. All we just have to do is use the click to action in the applied steps. So if I click on this, the deleted column will return. And if I say, guy, I still don't need you because you don't have accurate information, and it will remove totally, and it's gone. Now we have the quantity fixed. Here, remember what we have to do. Once we have a new column, let's check the data type. The data type needs to be a whole number because, okay, now I think I can see why that guy did not give us the accurate something, because anything in whole number would be rounded up to the nearest whole number. So let me not fault them much, but we still have to fault them because of the null values. No, you know it's becoming more interesting when you look at data in a critical way. You'll be able to make more findings. Even the explanation will happen itself. So now that we have changed the data type, I can tell you for free that those guys that have that in 3 or whatever is all because of data type change. The only error they made was the null value that was not supplied, but now we have it. So there is no missing row. And if you use this tool I told you about that says column quality, you can see we have 100% valid, empty 0%, error 0%. But when we add the one that has null, which we removed, let's check the data, the column preview. It says empty 5%. That means 5% of this row is null. If you scroll down, 5% of the row is null. But when we discarded it and fixed this instead, change this to whole number because it's quantity, and now we have valid 100%. Now all our columns are 100% valid. And at this point, we can decide to change data amount to currency. So how do we get that done? Change it to fixed decimal number. Before we move on, does anybody have a question, please? Does anybody have a question? If you have a question, just signify or raise up your hand, or you just put a message in the box for me before we move on to a bit technical part of it. All right. So since I've not gotten any response regarding questions, we are going to move on to what we call data modeling. Data modeling is actually interesting, such that is where you are able to create relationships, connect your tables, at the same time ensure that the table takes the right shape. Also, you are able to add new columns that you think are important to your data, or even new tables that you think are important for your data because of data visualization. And that is the intelligent aspect of it. All right, but before we go to that level, there is something we have to do. You have to close and apply. So once I click on close and apply, it opens up the Power BI environment again. Let me show you what is happening now in the Power BI environment. The Power BI environment is loading that data into itself. It's loading customers, loading products, and loading sales. Remember, I'm going to ask a question, if you are really following, to know if you notice a change that has just recently happened. A change just happened. Can someone tell me? In the Power Query editor, just like I said, good. Someone said, am I closing and applying? All right, I close and apply by clicking on File. So when you click on File, and this is how I close and apply. All right, so moving the, just that I will have to go back to transform data if I want to show you how I did that. If I want to show you how I did that, if I go to transform data again, it opens the environment for me. And because I'm unable to share all my screen all at once, that is the challenge I have. Just follow it. I'm going to open the Power Query editor environment for you again so that you can see how I closed and applied. I'm waiting for it to show the environment. Just to answer Good Luck's question, because Good Luck asked a question that how did I close and apply? And we have to address that before we continue. But I'm waiting for the environment. Should, in case you have a big screen, it would have been better because I will just share my entire screen so you can see how I closed and applied. I'm waiting for it to show, but it's not showing yet. So sorry about that. It's not showing yet. The presentation is a bit. Okay, I think if you have, do you have Power Query environment in your at your end? If you have Power BI, you'll be able to just get it done. It's not that difficult. All you just have to do is click on File, Close and Apply, and you would see it go straight to the Power BI environment. All right. So when I click Close and Apply again, it comes here to the Power BI environment. At the Power Query editor, you will see that these guys, the customer, product, and sales, they were called queries. And the queries were on the left-hand side of the screen. But when it gets to the Power BI desktop environment, because Power Query Editor is entirely a different window. It's a different window entirely. So when it gets to the Power BI environment, it comes to the right-hand side, and the names change from query to data. Now you can say you have a data. But before, when you are transforming them or cleaning them, the system does not regard them as data. They are just queries. So after your queries have been cleaned and transformed, now you have data, and they are listed on the right side of the screen. Now, what differentiates them from the query environment? And here, when it's showing the model view, because we have this view, okay, let me just introduce you to this environment. We have the report view, we have the table view, we have the model view, we have the DAX query view. And this is for the advanced level, where you are able to, let's say you want to do an advanced calculation or formulas based on your data analytic expressions, and you want it in a broader view. Then you come to the DAX query environment. And the good thing about it is it checks for error instantly. And this environment was newly, it's even a preview. You can see it's actually a new environment introduced into Power BI just this year. And so it's still under test. So no one is expecting you that you should know how to use the TMDL view, because the TMDL view is even still under test. And once you use the TMDL view, you're able to have your Power BI as like you are using SQL. And it's actually beautiful for those of us who are using it and who have been familiarized with the SQL environment, because it gives you a tabular form. Actually, TMDL means tabular model definition language, just like you are doing this thing we call the SQL environment, where you're able to query and tell you what your data contains. All right, that is what TMDL is all about. But so I don't bore you with this advanced level part. You will get more findings about it, maybe if you want to sign up for a more premium class with us. So looking into this environment, these three environments is what we need right now. Even is what makes you a full-fledged data analyst. Using this environment, the report view, where you visualize your data, the data view or table view, where your data are enlisted like a table, and the model view, where we'll be working on right now, where we are able to connect our data and create relationships. So the model view is very, very important. This is where you analyze the relationships between your data. And if your data are not connected, like this now is partly broken already. We don't have connected data here. And that is an issue that has to be resolved in this model view. And we'll be looking into it together. All right. So before I go into the model view, I want to ensure that everybody really understood what transpired in the data, the Power Query Editor, where we transformed our data. Because if you don't have a solid understanding of data transformation and cleaning, you don't have any business with model view yet. Because most of your questions will be like, why is this? Why is this that? Because if I open up these columns, let's say for instance, I open up this customer column that we fixed, this customer table that we fixed, you can see that the location we fixed is there. The location that we are supposed to discard that we did not want is there. So this is where we tidy up this environment. For instance, I don't want this guy to follow us to the report view, because it's the fixed one we want to visualize. We don't want the one that has errors. Remember the location fixed, look at what it looked like here. Location fixed and the location that we received. This person wrote London as small letter L, but the one we fixed has London as capital letter N. So stuff like that is why we need to have a model view. So in the model view, if you click on this, because in the visual, let me show you what exactly how you're going to appreciate what happened. In the visualization environment, you will see that we're having two locations, and this is already confusing. And to get this fixed, in the model view, we will just have to click on this eye. So when we click on this eye, this thing that says, I call it eye, it looks like eye, like somebody's eye. So this eye, when you click on this, it's not going to make it visible in the report view. And back in the report view, we can see that we cannot find it anymore. That is mastering when you master your model view environment, you'll be able to manipulate data as you like. Manipulating data exactly is what really makes you an analyst. Knowing what to do with data, knowing the insights that can come from a particular data. Like from this data, we're going to have specific insights that might come from it, and we'll have a look at it together. All right. So what are the possible insights that we need in this data? This is the models. The data, the tables are showing in different grid. This grid 1 for sales. Let's put the sales in the middle because it's a fact table. The grid 1 is for sales. Let's say grid 2 is customers. And this is grid 3, product. But this kind of table, there's something that's called date table. We need it in Power BI. On a basic level, the date table can quickly auto-generate itself if you give it very simple command. What is that simple command? Okay, let's quickly do it. When you come to this environment and you click on new table, you can see that it has given you the new table here, waiting for your calculation here. And the calculation expected is just call it a date table. This is not advanced, just a little tweaking of our data. Date, then let's give it the date equals calendar auto. This alone is, at least on the basic level, is enough for now. When you close it, this is going to generate the minimum date in this data and the maximum date in this data and make it a calendar year for you. So once we have closed this bracket and you click on enter, you will see that a date table grid has joined these guys. The date table is already showing here. That is it. But in a more advanced way, the date table we are seeing, if a full-fledged data analyst sees this data, would not really see this date table as what is usable for us because it's not specifying the date, month, or year specially, which might be needed in the visualization aspect. And that is why we might want to add little flesh to it. Remember, I promised actually that we are not going to do some coding, but the truth is that in tech generally, the highest paying jobs require you to have some coding intelligence to some extent. And what has made coding to be a bit interesting in this generation of ours is something called IntelliSense. For those of us who did computer in university or who has had encounter with programming in the past, we would know that coding was not as difficult as it is or as it was as far back as year 2009, 2010, even up to 2015. It's not that difficult anymore because there's something called IntelliSense, which guides you in your coding. And that is what makes it a bit more interesting. And that is even why a lot of people are able to break into the tech industry nowadays. Because it's not as difficult as it usually be. Before, if you want to code, you have to really learn the syntax in your memory. You get the technical jargons in your brain and begin to fix it one by one. In fact, the funniest thing is that you will have written like over 1,000 lines of code and you don't even have any tool to debug it, to tell you if what you are writing is right or wrong, until you try to run it and you now see that there is a problem, or you tell you so many errors. But the tech world has so much improved that coding is now, to me, is now like something a bit interesting, more than before. There's always a saying that if you have not experienced the bad, you will not appreciate the good. And that is why I would say what we do nowadays is not even really coding. It's just learning to use the environment as we should. All right. So moving on, I will be creating the date table manually and discarding this guy that I showed you guys. But what I just showed you guys that you also can create a calendar auto by just doing this yourself. Once you just put in the calendar, just write CA. It will give you a suggestion. Can you see? These are suggestions that follow the letter C in this calculation. And just using the keyboard, pam, on just pressing the arrow key down and going to calendar auto, you press enter, it fills it himself or itself, and you just close the bracket. You have written that code for calendar auto. But just like I said, on a bit advanced level and leaving the basic level, we might want to specify this calendar date ourselves. And how do we do that? Now, let me fix this to what I think I want. I won't be using the calendar auto, I'll be using what I just call calendar, which is on a manual level. But if I'll be using that, I have to specify the minimum date from that table or from the data, which will be automatically pulled by the system. But once I put MIN minimum, it suggests it for me through the IntelliSense and opens another bracket for me to put that table I'm referring to and the column. So the table here will be the table itself is in the sales table, and it has the sales date, which I'm selecting right now. This is simple data analytics expressions, and the right way to get it right. I believe that a lot of us, when we have, some of us that have watched internet videos, and at a point we just got pissed that, oh, will I ever know this thing at all? Because there are so many coding. So all these coding you see on people's screens, they are not the ones typing everything themselves. They only need to understand the rudiments. That is the truth. Like you can see here, I'm only using my keyboard up, right, center. I don't have to type everything at a goal. Now see where I'm going to. So I click on sales date, which is referred, this article referring to a particular column called date, sales date inside the sales table. And once I click on that, and just maybe I close the bracket and put a comma. Now it means that, the system is telling you that if you look at this environment, it's even giving you a guide to the formula they are expecting, such that you will not get an error. It's telling you that I put start date, it's waiting for the end date. So this is a guide in data analysis and expressions. So once I put a comma and say, okay, the comma is the max date, which is the intelligence has brought MAX. Now I want to put the same order date, the same sales date in that data. So it will select the minimum date in my data and the maximum as the calendar year of that company when they sold products. So once I do the same thing, that okay, this is sales date, which I'm going to select here, and close the bracket, first bracket. Remember, we opened a bracket here, which this one showing red shows that it has not been closed, and so we still need to close it. Now that we have closed the second bracket, you can see that the red has changed to normal. Now, when you don't see red in your formulas or your codes in your data analytical expression, which I call DAX, when the red is showing, it shows errors. I won't lie to you, it shows errors. But when you are not seeing any red indication, like for instance, if I put a comma here now, you will see a red here. You can see it has invalidated my code. It's already underlined it that I must complete what I'm doing. But once there is no error, everything looks clean. And once I click on enter, now I have a proper date table. Now the difference in that date table is that this is a more intelligent table that specifies the minimum date in this information. Now let's go to the table. You can see what I just did has created this. This is the outcome of the formula we inputted, because by doing that, it created a date hierarchy, a year, quarter, month, and day, which I can even still go further to define. You can go further to define it. Okay, let's do it. New column in this place would give us a new formula to write. Immediately you press new column, it gives you the table tools. You can see this has been generated here, waiting for a formula here. Now let me specify the column as year. Y-E-A-R, year. Good. So the right syntax to generate a year column in a date table is when you call out the year from that particular date table you have created. The date of a date table, and you close it. You can see that error has disappeared. And if I click enter, see what happens. You can see that the year 2023 was when items were sold in that company, and it has generated it as a column. It's very, very simple. DAX is very, very simple. Unlike how people are so scared about it when they watch videos on the internet at times. But the truth is that if you understand the concept, it's something you can do also. That's the truth. And looking at what happens to it here, the year now, anytime you see any sign like this, it shows that it's a calculated column that you have generated yourself. Now, let's move on. We can do something more to that. From this table, we can also generate months. How do we do that? Remember, we are working in the date table. So you click on the new column. It gives you an empty column waiting for your calculations. Very simple. Now, let's give it a new calculation expecting the month. So give me month number. Okay, so let's say month number equals to month. Intelligence has brought it for me, so I just click on enter. I didn't type it myself. and I just give it the date. So I'm calling out the date inside this date table. So this is the date I'm referring to in the date table, and that is why I'm selecting this. The date in the date table. So once I close the bracket, error disappears because the syntax shows they are not expecting any error. And I click on enter, it generates the month number. So this is month number 1, which is January, month number 2, February, month number 3, March, and even indicating the number of days in that month. All right, so we can continue to fix that date table because I don't think we are even done with the date table. We can still get month itself and generate a format for month. All right, let's do that now so that we have a full-fledged of what a date table can give us. All right, so remember, we just have to click on new column. Very simple. It's immediately you click on new column, the column is created in your model and also giving you an avenue to put in your formula. So my new column here will be month itself, and we can set the format of month by clicking on formats. So IntelliSense brought this, even though I typed it, but I will still choose what IntelliSense has brought and format date. And I'll be giving it the formula. I'll be giving the formula. This comma shows that something is expected from me. And if you look at this is a guide. Remember I told you this is a guide. We have the value is expected, which is date has been given. The format is expected from me, which is let me give it a format MMM and close it. Once I close it, this MMM means that if you put 3 M's, it shows that you want your month to be abbreviated to just 3 letters, first 3 letters of that month. So once I click on enter, let's see what happens. Yes, can we see? 31 JAN. Every Jan here at 31, representing the 31 days of January. You can see February, FEB, March, MAR, up to December. That is based on our calculation. Remember how this did not happen when we did calendar auto? All because we wanted things to be done properly. And we want it usable as data analyst that we are. So now, let's say we want this format to be something else, maybe 4 M's. When we put it in 4 M's, the indication is that it will give us the full information about that month. Can you see that it has changed from abbreviated month to full word about that month? September, October, November, December, all fully written. That is the implication of using this format. Now, if you don't even gain anything in the DAX class, you have known the differences in the formatting. That when you use 3 M's, 3 M's give you an abbreviated month into the first 3 characters of that month. While 4 M's gives you the full information or the full name of that month written fully. But usually, as data analyst, you don't want to consume space. You just have to limit it to just first 3 letters. We'll be able to demarcate or tell us what month it is. Now, I have been able to tell us the DAX analysis of the date table and how to create date table. This is a date table on its own, and I want to believe that everyone understands creating a date table. So now let's go back to the model view. The next 15 minutes, we are going to be modeling this data and doing, just like I promised in the beginning of the class, we will do some data visualization today. And so we can appreciate what relationship really means in data analysis. We are going to do some quick experiment. So looking into this date, you can see it's standing alone. And I would like to join it to the right table. How do we get it done? Look at what relationships can be formed. There are ways of doing this in Power BI. The first thing you can do, which I don't usually recommend, although the system is built to assist us, if you click on manage relationships and you tell it to auto detect relationships, it will automatically find it. Okay, fine. This time it's even saying it does not find new relationships. So just like I said, AI cannot take us just because we believe we are more intelligent. Something that is saying it cannot find new relationships would give us a relationship very soon. So in some cases, auto detect would find new relationships for you. But I believe there are relationships when a date table has been created and the data has a date. Then we can connect by simply doing this, dragging this to meet this. This is date. I'm meeting this sales table, this sales date would generate a relationship. Can we see? Once I drag this to this, it opened a new window. Oh, you guys are not seeing the window that just opened up. Oh, let me just try to do this again. It's supposed to show a new window for you, but the window is only showing to me. Let me try to show this window again. It's becoming a bit interesting, but the main thing is you should be seeing my exact screen. Good. This is the window that newly generated for me. It said new relationship. Remember when I clicked on it, I didn't even know if it showed to everyone then that it said there was no new relationship. But here now, a relationship is showing because I joined this to this. Let me try to do it again. I dragged date to date, and it created new relationship. So the relationship is just for me to make it active. If a relationship is not active, this line
your screen.
Is anyone talking on the background?
Yes, we can't see your screen.
Are you serious? Is anyone seeing my screen? Let me ask some other people to
I can see the screen.
if you can't see my screen right now. Okay, some people said they can see it, so it might be your network. Because I can see an evidence that my screen is showing.
I can see it now.
All right, thank you.
My network.
So here my screen is showing new relationship. And it's able to detect that there's a relationship between sales date and the new sales table we just created. So if I click on save, you can see that a line has connected date and date. So if I hover my mouse on this line, you can see where the relationship is existing. Anywhere I drag this guy to, this line will join them together. It's a sign that it's going nowhere. They are related. That is the meaning of that relationship we are talking about. The relationship between tables. Actually, there are several types of relationship, but on a bit more technical level, you might have to read more about it, maybe after the class, just so that in the next class you will understand what we're doing better. We have several types of relationship. We have the one-to-many relationship, we have many-to-one relationship, we have one-to-one relationship, and we have many-to-many relationship. This is called cardinality. But this cardinality is dependent on the type of data and the format of that data in the database and how they are well seated in the facts table in relationship with the dimensions. But so that I don't make it a bit boring, let me just go straight to the point and ensure that, okay, click on this. If I click on this line called relationship, I think it will tell you a little bit of what I'm talking about. Now, see, just like I mentioned, cardinality. You can see this small window that says cardinality of 4. And it's telling us this relationship is many to one. The system already told you the type of relationship it is, so you don't have to worry yourself about it. Just identify that there are 4 types of relationships. But the type of relationship it is, the system will let you know once they are connected. Now we have many to one relationship, connecting the date table and the sales date. And another thing I want us to see is if I click on this make relationship, this relationship active, if I uncheck it, the relationship will be connected still, but we can see that it's giving a dotted line, shows that these lines are broken. And when the relationship is not active, the implication is usually shown in the visualization. It does not give a sensible response when you try to connect them in visuals. For instance, let me try to make the relationship active by double-clicking it again and making it active. Now, we have an active relationship between date and this. Even this guy can still be connected to date. Remember, we still have a date column in this customer table, which is not related to anyone. It's just looking like an island. So we can still connect date table to this and form another relationship. And it's telling us that this is a cardinality of 1-to-1 based on the system's intelligence. Guys, you don't have to worry yourself much about how direction or whatever filter it is. The fact is that the system would let you know the cardinality of that relationship. That, okay, for instance, in the relationship between customer and date is 1-to-1, while the relationship between date and sales is many-to-one. Now we have all relationships fully complete, ready for visualization. But before we go to visualization, I will take a little of your time to really model this data for proper visualization. This data lacks intelligence. That is the truth. Even after completing data, what we call data cleansing and transformation, there are still a lot of things we can do to this data to make it a bit intelligence. Can somebody tell me what they think is lacking in this? For example, from this data, if assuming you have a business and you want this data to tell you about your sales, about your progress, about what is happening in your organization's product sales, what do you think this data needs? I've expanded everything now. I think we can just take 1 minute or two to have a look at this environment I'm pointing at, and tell us if there is something we think we might need in this data. As a business owner, what will you be looking at in this data? As a business owner, what will you be looking at in this data? All right. So let me just say, okay, let me just give you the benefit of doubt. 1 minute just to have a look. If this data lacks something, let's look, focus on the sales, focus on the sales table. Look into it if it lacks something. Because it's actually good to do some critical thinking and not me to tell you everything. It's a very good thing to have some critical thinking skills when it comes to data analysis. You look into the data, look at what you think it might need. And that is what separates you from just being a data analyst and a business intelligence analyst. As a business intelligence analyst or a business intelligence expert, you should be able to look into data and bring out insights for your stakeholder. And that is what we are doing right now. We're going to be doing the job of a business intelligence analyst to bring insight for, let's say, you're working for Dangote or you're working for somebody who owns a big company, and they just said, as a business intelligence expert, they need you to analyze their data. What are you going to be telling them? It's not just about visualization, but it's about visualizing what? Well, what visualizations are we supposed to come up with from this data? 1 minute is gone. All right. In the absence of any response, I would be looking into this data to tell us what I think this data needs. This data lacks intelligence because it does not tell us the total sales that was made in any column. It does not tell us the average selling price of those quantity. It does not tell us the distinct customers that they have. Which customers brought most? It does not tell us. It does not even tell us the distinct products, about the facts about their products. You can get the total sum or whatever of number of amount spent, something that said unit price. You can have an average unit price. So stuff like that can be brought out of that data. In fact, there's something called sales year over year. It is a very, things I've mentioned are called KPIs. I believe you should have understood what we call KPIs. For those of us who are already in the job market, who are already working in business intelligence environment, we call something KPIs. It's not only used in business intelligence environment. If you are in a standard workplace, they call something KPIs. That means something expected from you, something expected that is used to measure your performance. So KPI means key performance indicators. So your KPIs will determine if you are doing well or not. So the KPI for this business, yes, thank you, Christina, for letting us know, key performance indicator. So the key performance indicator will determine if this data is really doing well or not. So the KPI for this data is what I've mentioned. The KPI of this data is what I've mentioned. We need to know the sum, the total quantity sold, the total sales, average selling price, distinct customers, distinct products, data quality metrics, and so on. Overpriced products, we can even check it. We can check the average profit margin if we are able to get a profit for them. But I don't think we are the selling price versus sales price here. So we might not be able to get a profit, but we are looking at it on an executive point of view of a producer. All right, so let's look into it now and quickly dissect it in the next 5 to 10 minutes. I apologize that we're supposed to end by 2 p.m., but I'll be taking a little longer so we can have this data modeled and save it so that our next class we can have a complete Power BI experience of it. All right. So looking into this data, I want us to generate the sale, the total sum of sales. How do we do that? So when I right click on it, we are going to remember the last time I did DAX, I used it to calculate date table. This time we're going to use DAX to create something called new measure. When you create a new measure, that measure is not going to be showing in the data table itself or the table view, but it's going to be a measure listed in your model. Now, when I click on new measure and call it, let's call it total quantity. All right, total quantity. So let's do the total quantity. Total quantity. All right. So what will be the calculation for total quantity? Can someone just tell me intelligently if you want to get total quantity? I'm awaiting a response. What would be the right calculation to get a total of the quantity? Someone said amount over price. Amount over price. That might not be correct because we already have the quantity is already generated. We only need a sum of everything we have in that column. And so the formula will be, so as not to waste our time on that, the formula will be sum. You can see I've written it in the DAX environment. The sum of, just open the bracket, we have quantity from sales. So intelligence has brought the values you might want to add up. So we have the sales total amount. And when you click on it and just close it, there is no errors. And it tells you total quantity, sum sales into total amount is going to generate the measure called total quantity. So once, just focus your eyes on this environment and see how it's going to change when I click on enter. Now see what will happen. It arranged it immediately, put a calculator beside it, and shifted it downward alphabetically and says total quantity. That total quantity is now standing like a column, but it's not a visible column in the eyes. It is just a measure. So anytime you see somebody's data, anytime you see somebody's data and you go to the model view, you can categorically tell if the person did some measure in that data or not. Once you see this sign, calculator sign, it shows there is a measure. So the evidence that we do not have this in the table is that, number one, inside sales, if you collapse this, you have it here in green color, but if you go here, you will not see total quantity. Unlike when we created the date table that was showing here visibly. But when we come here, you will not see total quantity that we created because it's a measure. A measure, a calculated measure is different from a calculated table. So anytime you might be asked that in a job interview, that you should differentiate or tell us the difference between a calculated measure and a calculated table. If you have a Power BI interview, it's one of those questions they will ask you. Now, what do you think is the difference between calculated table? They want to know if really you have practicalized this thing before. You can tell them that a measure would not be physically shown. It will only show you a calculator beside it. And you can only see it in the model, a total quantity. And this total quantity, when you get to the view environment, you are now able to view it. So if I put this here, total quantity, and say, give me to me in chart, you can tell me that intelligently on a visualization level, I can see the total quantity is what? 181 pounds, 181,000 pounds 89p. On an intelligent level, we are able to now tell the total quantity. So if I'm building a dashboard for Dangote, I will just put this aside here. That is the essence of data analysis. You are able to bring intelligent insight from the data you are given. True, we were not given this when we got the Excel file, but we have been able to generate it. Now let's get total sales. The same formula will work for total sales. So if you go back to the model environment and say total sales is what? You click on this and say right click this, new measure, and give me the formula. Sum of that is let's say total sales, and come here, sum, open a bracket. It will give you what? The intelligence will bring what you might need. Total amount that was sold. And we close it. Open it again. It generates total sales. So if you go back to the visuals, total sales is available here. Drag it here and choose a visualization called card. Or you might even choose this, a gauge. If they have a particular, let's say they have a target of 363,000 pounds and they were only able to sell 181, they can see it at a view, at a glance. This is exactly where we are running into, where we are targeting to achieve, while we have that Excel file. All right, let's do one more measure before we call it a day, because we are going to do proper visualization next week. All right, another measure that we can come up with. Can someone tell me? I would like someone to suggest, please, so that I don't be the one to just indicate. You can leave a message in the comment section, so that will be the last measure we are writing for the day. It's not compulsory, it's total. It might be an average. Okay, someone says average sales made. All right, that is perfect. Average sales made. Average sales made. I love that insight. I love that insight. Thank you. So it's going to give us an average sales made. So what will be the formula of average sales made, since you already suggested it? Total sales divided by number of transactions. Somebody said this formula is wrong, that it should be total sales divided by number of transactions. So we're going to create a new information about it. But I think before we are able to get number of transactions, we have to do a count. That is the truth. We have to do a count. We have to count the number of sales we did. So for this, we are going to do a count. Right click, new measure, and there's something called distinct count. Number of transactions has to exist. Transactions, and it says distinct count. That is the formula to count a particular number of something that happened number of times. Distinct count, number of transactions. How do we find number of transactions from here? Okay, is it how many times the customer came? Sale date. Or let's just do count A, count rows of sale date. Good. This will help us to get the number of transactions. All right, let's see if we did it right. When we put this here and use the card, you can see that there were 100 transactions, guys. There are 100 transactions. So Christina is very correct. There are 100 transactions. And so if you go to the table view, looking into it, there are 100 rows of transactions. So you are very, very correct. We had 100 transactions. Now to get the average sales, she said sales divided by number of transactions. So we're going to go now to create a new measure again. It's becoming interesting, guys, and I love this because we are both contributing to it. So new sales, total sales, or average sales rather, average sales equals total sales, which we have created, divided by transactions, which we have already calculated. And when we close the bracket, do we even have any bracket to close? No, just click enter. Now we have average sales. Now let's check our average sales again if it's normal. Good, it's still similar. We have £1 82p. This is 1,000.82 pounds. This is accurately nice for our visualization. Thank you, Christina, for bringing us out with that intelligent response too. Thank you to Mininu for your contributions too, because you have been able to give us a heads up regarding what exactly we need to calculate. And now we have 100 transactions. Now visualization is making sense because we are having our cards already. Total sales, total quantity. I don't think this is actually looking nice because they are the same. Okay, total quantity should not be equal to this, so we need to check this maybe some in our next class. I will save this for you so that when we look into it and we'll adjust any calculation before we complete the visualizations. Is there any questions, please? Let me just save this as day 2. Modeled data. So we continue this data in our next class and make it complete and nice for presentation to our stakeholders. Please, I need questions. People should ask questions. You can talk, you can unmute yourself and speak, or you can leave a message in the chat box. I will read them, everything. I'm still waiting for questions in the next 2-3 minutes before we call it a day. All right, so I would also be leaving will this video be available for rewatch? Yes, Christiana, it will be available. And I would also send you a link to give your feedbacks, which I will appreciate. I really need feedbacks to know how you feel about it, because some people might not want to leave a message here, but you might leave your message in the feedback so I can see what exactly you feel about this video, about this class rather, so that we can know exactly what we need to adjust, right? So please hold on, let me just quickly get the link for that feedback so that we can be able to give our feedbacks about today's class. And for those who want this to rewatch, I will try my best to ensure that we get this across to you. All right. In the absence of not having any question, you have really, really tried, and you have really made me proud by showing up and listening to what we have to say about Power BI. Again, it's been a very awesome time together, and I really appreciate your presence. So here is the link for the feedback. You can just click on the link and tell us how you feel, or whatever adjustment you need, or whatever challenges you might be having. I'm ready to assist. Thank you so much for your time, and we can now call it a day.